Welcome to Cafecito y Calidad. I'm your host, Elizabeth Sanchez, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified coffee enthusiast. Whether we're catching up with friends, studying for a big exam, or grounding with a little caffeinated cozy goodness, coffee brings us together, it powers us up, and it gives us a reason to sit down and connect. Each week, I'll be sitting down with an inspiring entrepreneur to discuss their journey towards building successful businesses and the mental wellness tools they use to alleviate burnout. But first, let's take a sip of something warm and comforting, shall we? You all probably know by now, I'm a first-generation Latina entrepreneur who is a big supporter of women-owned businesses. This is why finding El Cielito was such a special discovery for me. This online coffee company is led by the inspiring, warm-hearted, and hilarious social media star Daniel Oliveras, and they specialize in crafting delicious roasts using coffee beans from women-owned farms in Latin America. So why not try something new and support a great cause? Order from El Cielito online coffee company today. Hello and welcome to Cafecito y Calidad, where we have quality conversations over coffee. I'm your host, Elizabeth Sanchez, licensed marriage and family therapist. On this season of Cafecito y Calidad, we're talking all things entrepreneurship and mental health. We'll be discussing topics such as trusting yourself and taking an unconventional career path, learning to navigate mental health spaces online, and learning to practice discernment in business partnerships. Let's give a warm welcome to Brittani Williams.
Hi.
Hello.
So happy to be here. It's like such a vibe.
Do you love it?
I do. I love it.
Welcome back to Whittier.
Where the girls are prettier.
Hey.
Do people use that like?
Yeah,
right? Okay.
all the time.
That's what I always thought about.
All the time. It might even be something you can add on Instagram.
I do feel like the girls are really pretty out here.
I feel flattered. Oh, well, thank you so much. You came all the way from San Diego to be part of our podcast. It's such an honor to have you, Brittani.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. I just feel like so cared for and such a dope space. And so I'm really, I told you this on the IG live, like, I just feel like our conversations feel very natural and like comfortable. And so thank you for providing that space for me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, before we get started around this conversation around partnerships, I have to ask you a very important question. I asked you on the IG live, but I'm going to ask you again today.
Yeah.
How do you take your coffee or your tea?
I take my coffee black, nothing in it. And same with my tea. I feel like originally were used to heal the body. Yeah. And so I definitely want to like just taste the herb or whatever that is. So yeah.
Do you have a favorite
tea?
Yeah.
My favorite tea. My one of my good friends is from Bahrain, and she makes this masala tea that is so good. She doesn't live close to me, so every time I visit her, she always has the pot for me. So that's my favorite.
Nice. I love. I've been into. Well, takes me back to my grandma, manzanilla.
Yeah. Dude, manzanilla tea cures a lot. Did you grow up where like they told you to give your baby that they had like stomach cramps?
Yeah, and I actually give him gripe, and I read the back, and it's literally manzanilla. Yeah, our ancestors knew.
They knew.
They knew. Now they're just selling it.
Exactly. Capitalizing off of our
ancestors.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, manzanilla tea, especially after a long day to help me go to sleep. So yours sounds delicious though.
Yeah, masala tea is like a spice tea. So
nice. But
yeah, I love like manzanilla tea. My go-to is like a jasmine green tea. When I'm in sessions, I'm like a person that fasts. Like, so I only eat from like 12 to 6. I try to at least. Okay. But so I'm in session from as early as 8 to 12. And I feel like I'm very much like focused and present when I just have tea or coffee and no food in session. I mean, don't try that at home. Like that just works for me. But
I'm the same though. I'm the same. Yeah. I have my cup of coffee and we're ready to go. I don't really eat until after.
Yeah. Because I get tired.
And then
I want to eat more. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And then, especially if you have like an hour in between your clients, I don't need that.
Yeah. I get foggy.
Yeah. Well, Before we get started, after talking about coffee and tea, can you share with our guests a little bit about who you are, Brittany, and what you do? And yeah, I'm excited for everybody to learn about you.
Awesome. I'm gonna try to keep this short because I do a lot.
She does.
I would say, to sum it up, I'm a therapist, I'm a speaker, and I'm a creative. I'm also a mom. I'm also a wife, a tia, a daughter, a sister. I'm a lot of things. But I own a practice called Healmatic Group Practice in San Diego. Consists of a team of therapists. Our work is really focused on somatic based practices and culturally affirming practices. Um, for those who are not hip hop literate, Healmatic came to me in New York, um, inspired by Nas's classic album Illmatic, and it was during a really, really hard time in my life. I mean, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Where I just really felt like I needed to start fresh and like come up with a name that really embodied, what I wanted to represent. And so, listening to Illmatic in New York, I looked down and I'm like, I'm going to create Healmatic. Honoring how much hip hop has brought healing into my own life, and how it was really a space where me and my friends in high school felt like we could be ourselves and be creative and have a voice. And so it's really to pay homage to that backstory. Um, I have 3 kids, 18, 10, and 3.
One just graduated.
One just graduated.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's definitely a weird time in parenting right now. But yeah, I'm also, a creative too. Most people find me on TikTok, whether it be a funny, mental health thing.
Laugh all the time at your TikTok.
Yeah, I just feel like, probably we're going to get into this more, but I feel like that platform really gave me permission to be myself and to be funny. Like, we're not always talking about sad things. Like, we could laugh and we could be real. And so, whether it be creating content on social media, we also have a podcast called the Wholehearted West Coast Living Podcast, kind of a remix on Brene Brown's Wholehearted Living, except it's us. And it's stories from our community, our culture, and whatnot. And so I think I got everything. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but that's me. That's who I am.
Wonderful. Yes. Maybe that's where we start, Brittany, talking a little bit about our names. Like, I know you spoke about Nas and how he inspired you, and it sounds like his music really got you through some of the difficult times.
I would say not just Nas, but like Nas's album represents a very pivotal time in hip hop culture, right? Like, Illmatic was kind of like a shift in like, people were anticipating Illmatic too, and he was like a 19. Right, when he wrote that.
Really young.
Right. So it really, and he tells this like very American story of a marginalized, oppressed youth. And so not just Nas's music, but hip hop in general, hip hop culture in general has always been a way where I could have a voice and, make music and talk about something that I necessarily don't feel safe talking to, like on a one-on-one conversation with my family. And so hip hop culture in general, because if you think about hip hop culture, it's not just music, it's fashion, it's language, it's entrepreneurship, it's an element of hip hop, it's knowledge of self, it is it's dance, it's graffiti art, it's self-expression, right?
Yes.
And so there are many artists that have carried me through, especially last year. But whether it be on the East Coast or the West Coast or worldwide. And so hip hop culture has really carried me through a lot of dark times. And I think that that's important to remember, right? Like, going to therapy and taking care of our mental health is important. But when we are in the darkest times of our lives, we turn to artists and creatives to get us through. And so that's what has really pushed me into nurturing my inner artists, whether it be through having conversations like this, creating music, creating a brand, like what does your logo look like, all those little things, nurture that artist part of us.
No, I definitely agree with that. I actually was a dancer.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we going to go to the club tonight? I cannot keep up.
No.
I'm in bed by like 9:30.
No, I can't either. My son hits the bed and I'm down. No. But growing up, I actually dance was actually an outlet for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in dance as a little girl, but in high school, I feel like that was what got me through it. High school is at least for me, it was a difficult time of my life.
Yeah.
And I feel when I found dance, it really, really got me through a lot of difficult challenges, not only at school, but like through my family. I also am an athlete, so I played water polo for 4 years. Beat up a couple girls in the pool.
You were like it.
People were like, "You play water polo? You're so quiet. You're so introvert." I'm like, "Well, that's why I'm able to."
Water polo is no joke.
It's not.
Like
no.
I could like do a solid doggy paddle, but I like y'all be in it.
Yeah. I would go from the pool to the dance studio, and I think that just just hearing you talk about being a creative, I feel like that was what got me through it.
Well, and if you think about it, right, like I played soccer, like in middle school and whatnot, and I remember going through kind of like this transition in my career where I wanted to leave community mental health and create something. And so I had heard about inner child work. They're like, do something that you used to enjoy. And I showed up to a pickup soccer game. I like didn't remember any of the rules, but that's a part of my practice now.
Yes.
Like I play soccer every Thursday. I got to stretch, stuff, pops and
Things
cracks.
hurt a little bit, knees.
Yes. So I got to take recovery serious now.
Absolutely.
But if you think about it, like all of that is bilateral movement, right?
Yeah.
It's regulating the body, regulating stress in the body. And so I think a part of, I talked about it in our practice, it's really normalizing and not like putting too much of not professionalizing the things that already bring us healing. Sometimes as I remember being in the kitchen with my grandma and seeing her make her food. Like that was incredibly healing to me to smell the food and to smell the onions roasting, making your eyes kind of burn. Yeah.
Don't look.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I love that you said that because that actually goes with the theme of our podcast. One of the things that was so grounding for me growing up was watching my grandma make café de olla or just making cafecito in the morning, getting her day started, cooking, but still drinking. But she likes it hot. She's gone now, but she used to love it so hot that I'm like, Grandma, like duele. I can't even drink your coffee, but just the smell and the taste like really takes me back to a time in my life when I was able to connect with her. And even going back to you saying bilateral, like I picked up boxing recently, and that's been I take up like really aggressive sports.
You gotta let it out. You gotta let it out. I'm doing jujitsu next Thursday. I'm scared for my life. But my daughter was like, Mom, please, because she does jujitsu.
Okay.
I'm like, let me try this. I'm scared. Yeah, I know. I think that trying new things, engaging in play, like, that's all a part of nurturing ourselves. I think as moms and entrepreneurs too, it's very easy to lose ourselves in that.
Yes.
And so like the reality of it is the work is never done. It's never done.
Never.
The to-do list will always be there and it'll keep getting, longer.
Yes.
You knock things out, but that's just the reality. And so I think it's important for us to, take risks and do things that, whether it be getting our aggression out or playing soccer or dance. Like dancing is okay. Funny story. Not funny, but it might be.
Let's hear it.
I joined the Zumba class. Like, okay, I have no rhythm.
I don't believe that.
Let me go back. I have a solid 2-step, but like I can't get down.
Right.
Like my husband and daughter, they could dance to anything. Like I'm a boogie.
You're gonna have to invite me over.
My family, I can't keep up. They get down.
My husband's the opposite. He's like, when he met me, I can't keep up with you.
So
let's hear it.
I joined the Zumba class, and it's like a huge studio, like maybe 50 people in it, and we are just like dancing to salsa, to reggae, and reggaeton, and like I got to a point where I like really knew the routine very well. I knew what was coming next, and I was like, this is like me being in a whole older adult club. The music's blasting, like everyone's like dancing,
vibing, and everything.
Yeah, but I think that it's very, and we see this in the research, it's very powerful to be in a space with people where you're moving together and you're having rhythmic conversations or rhythmic movement. And so I missed that class. It was discontinued. So I might join a salsa
COVID, I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, it helped me. And I think this goes into our conversation around entrepreneurship and practicing discernment and, choosing our business partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that that's something that really got me through it. Because when you and I both spoke about our partnerships, it was a really dark time for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I could have gotten through it without music, without dance, without therapy, without my support system. I shed a lot of tears. Lost a lot of hair. I know we talked about that too.
Yes.
Lost a lot of
It's
hair.
crazy what the
And
parasympathetic state of the nervous system will do to the body, man.
my gosh,
Yeah.
yes, being in that fight or flight.
Mm-hmm.
And, and also, building community like with people like yourself, Brittany. I know when we first met for that Zoom call, I felt so validated because I was like,
Yeah.
I'm not alone, that
Mm-hmm.
I'm having to go through this. And it was so hard.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what I've realized is it's a lot of grief involved in this, right? Like
Absolutely.
there's a lot of grief involved in like mourning what you created and like putting to rest what it's not going to be anymore and starting fresh, right? So in order to when you release, you can receive, whether it be new
Yes.
ideas, whether new visuals and creativity in that way. But it's definitely hard. I felt the same way. Like it was very validating, to share our stories together and then to also recognize that like we're also in this very similar season in our careers where
Yeah.
we're like not just doing the clinical work and in the trenches of that, but also stepping outside of our comfort zone and doing stuff like this. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely agree with the grief and loss, like the sadness, the anger, the denial. Like, is this really happening right now? And being able to, but you have to really look at that. And I think that's something that maybe we can talk about, Brittany, is that
Yeah.
being able to learn from these failures
Mm-hmm.
so that we're able to move forward and make better decisions. And as I've been processing this in therapy and, through self reflection, like it's also painful to look at the things I had to really challenge my negative self talk because I was like, how did you not see this? Or why did you let this go on for so long? But I had to really look at that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't easy to do that. I don't know if you can relate to that in any way.
Yeah, I think that looking back on a lot of stuff, I mean, even going all the way back to community mental health,
Yeah.
like I think that we don't really recognize how being in this field and surviving certain workplaces causes us to not have a voice or
Yeah.
to minimize who we really are so that we
Yeah.
could, fit in or get promoted or all. So then when you step into your own business, it's not all you don't get it right because you're
Yeah.
still doing so much unlearning. And so for me, I think a lot of it was like really recognizing that I had a fawn response. I never saw that part of me. I think that we all think
Totally.
that we're either fighters or no, we have multiple trauma responses in different environments. And so for me, recognizing that that was my response and reflecting on why. But EMDR really helped me process through a lot. Like that changed my life dramatically when I was going through that transition. I was on the East Coast with my hip hop collective colleagues and whatnot, and I had did an advanced EMDR training with Dr. Herrero, which his work focuses on protocols that are for like ongoing and prolonged traumatic stress, but also like immediate like I want to say first response to crisis or traumas.
Like an acute.
Yeah, acute situation. So he was doing these demos. I'm like so thankful for that. During
Free
that time.
therapy a little bit.
Yeah, I remember going. I had this like really painful like feeling in my neck, shoulder area, and after it was gone. And I was like,
Wow.
that's crazy. So
And I'm going to
yeah,
pause you for a second, Brittany. So for those of you who don't know what EMDR is, it's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy. It's something that both Brittany and I are certified in, and I know you just became a consultant in training. So congratulations!
Hey, thank you.
But
Trying to be like you.
Oh, thank you. But definitely it's something that is used for different things, not just traumatic experience. It could be life adjustments, all these different things. But so it sounds like EMDR helped you. It definitely helped me, but I'm really interested to hear your story around how you used EMDR to get you through that time of your life.
Yeah, so I did EMDR like the couple months before everything, and I processed. With EMDR, they're like, what are the symptoms first off, right? So symptoms for me were it was imposter syndrome, and so they take you back. When was the first time you felt like you weren't good enough? And I'm like, probably in elementary school, but like it doesn't really bother me. Like I could talk about it.
That hit me.
And then they break it down, right? What image represents the worst part? I'm like, okay, I see my school. And so they take me through this. And literally the next day, I asked the trainer, I was like, how long is this going to last? Because I really don't care at all what people say about me anymore. Like, I really believe that I'm called, I'm gifted to do this work. I'm confident in that. Right. And so, I'm grateful that I went through that, and I was so grounded in. The cool thing about EMDR too is you use exercises before you get into reprocessing to regulate but also ground you. So a wise figure you do an exercise called wise figure, and you basically call into the work someone that's brought you wisdom, guidance, and understanding in your life. And it was my grandma. My grandma passed. But I talk about this a lot. My grandma was the first one to teach me social work. She was native to East LA. That was her home. And she wasn't college educated, but the way that she interacted with people, she made an impact. And so when I think about who taught me this work, is my grandma. So when I was like struggling during the sets, right, I'm like, well, but this happened, and this makes me feel like I'm not good enough. It was like, well, what would your grandma say to you right now? And that rocks you. That always gets people. That always gets people
all the time.
And so, feeling the presence of my grandma, like allowing my body to feel her presence, to imagine what she feels like standing next to me and whatnot, that was really healing. So going into this transition and really coming to terms with what it is, that really worked in my benefit, because there was no doubt in my mind, like I'm really I'm really called to do this work. I really feel confident in that. I really feel like I'm an intentional leader. I'm solid in that too. And so having that worked in my benefit to have my voice again and to feel the feelings, but also be grounded in, like, this is hard and this is messy, but this is what it is. And getting real with yourself too. I think the thing that really is important is to have the vision. What's your vision? And if anything's not in alignment with that vision, the hard thing about being on your own as an entrepreneur is you have to have the courage to part ways with those people, with those business partnerships, with ideas, with how people work sometimes, right? It's just not a good fit. You can't be everything for everyone.
Like your values too.
Exactly.
That's exactly what it was for me, is that it started to not align with my own personal values, and
Right.
I had to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But man, you really are mi hermana del alma, because I used my grandmother.
I know.
I'm like,
Even
what the
even you're
hell?
talking about being in the kitchen with her. Like, that's how I.
Like, ¿quién eres?
Yes, it's crazy.
No, absolutely. Because with my grandmother, she was my wiser and my protector figure.
Mm.
She also, too, I think she also taught me a lot about the work that I'm doing as a healer. Because she was a healer. She was a single mother of 8 children and immigrated from Tijuana
Wow.
to the States by herself. And she was a nurse.
Wow.
Yeah, she was a nurse. And she helped take care of like the worst of the worst, from what she told me. And she loved it. And, she was never able to pursue that here in the States, but everything she did was with, I don't know, with so much kindness and love that,
Yeah.
and I was raised by her. So it just
Mhm.
followed me through. And I think that's also what I'm doing in the work that I'm doing now, is I'm living through her, and I really wanting to kind of keep her story alive.
Absolutely. I recently did I went on a therapist retreat or it was like a workshop, and we did a lot of like somatic based work, and I got a couple of messages from that day, and one of the very clear messages that I was not expecting to get was my grandma told me go and do what I wasn't able to do. And that's always like forever, like, in me. My grandma was a special ed teacher, so she had such a heart for people, and people that needed support, needed help, needed love. And so I feel you though on the wise figure, protective figure, because my grandma also did not play. Like,
I know. My grandma was, I think, a low key gangster.
oh,
No, no.
my grandma was certified.
She,
Like
oh
she
man,
was.
they would have gotten along
Yes.
over coffee and eating, and
They probably knew
man,
each other. I'm
they
telling
probably, no, absolutely. She was, every time I doubted myself, even going through graduate school or getting my bachelor's or moving out, she was always like, hazlo, mija.
you. Yeah.
Like, what's holding you back?
Yeah.
Like, do it. And I always think every time I'm going through a really difficult time, I'm always like, well, my grandma went through all these different challenges. Like, let me really embrace her power. Like, let me really call upon her. And I always see myself talking to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, when I do sessions, it probably looks wild to some people, but I have like a plant, but right next to it I always have a candle lit, and it's a picture of my grandma. It's a picture of all my nurturing figure, my wise figure, so it's like my grandma, Kendrick Lamar, J. Cole.
Hey.
It looks wild,
Wow.
but like, when I'm
Yeah.
working and I'm like, because when you do somatic work in sessions,
Yes.
you really have to be, it's all attunement. You got to trust yourself. You got
Totally.
to be you have to be in
Yeah.
tune with the client as
Yes.
well. So sometimes I'm like, should I pause it? Should I let them go with it? Right. So I
Yeah.
need them right there to like ground me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think that's why I recently got gifted a Cafecito de olla candle, and I
mm,
light it up, and it just brings me back to her.
hmm
And I have plants all over my office, and she was a huge plant lover, like many Latina
hmm
grandmother. So I have them all over, and I see myself when I'm having like a really difficult time or session, I use it to ground.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to add some of my other figures in there like you. I love that. I think you have a whole background,
Yeah,
right?
it's like a whole
It's
yeah, yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
So it sounds like you too, when you were going through those difficult times, you really called upon your ancestors, your grandmother, your ancestors.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that I've
Yeah.
learned in this work is that in doing EMDR and
Yeah.
facilitating that, like in being trained and certified in it, that's one thing, but you're really just a guide. And the
Yeah.
people that are really like helping people process through trauma are the people that have upheld them their whole lives. And so for me, like that's been my grandma, that's been, different figures in my life that I have to like when I'm really in my head, like, you know, what would they say to you right now? What do they want you to
Exactly.
know? What do they see in you that you don't see in yourself, right? Like, what do they wish for you? That helps you externalize it and, get back to the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. And I think that's something that maybe we can offer to our audience is that really honing in on whether they're, imaginary figures or people that are really in your life when you're having to make these difficult decisions, right? Like call upon your ancestors, call upon these people that have been there for you in whatever way, because these decisions as entrepreneurs are not easy. Like they really aren't. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you have to take a lot of, not sometimes, all the time, you have to take a lot of risks. So
Mm-hmm.
having that, I like to call it like your circle of support there to kind of guide you and follow you through this is really important.
Yes, absolutely. It risk taking, it never stops. So I also think another important thing that you
Yeah.
mentioned is, what is our fear, our doubt,
Yes.
our anxiety in comparison to what our grandparents, what our ancestors have had to live and survive through, right? Like that's really that pushes me in a whole other different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely. I see her journey, and she's always told me her when she
Mhm.
was alive. And I was like, man, like I really don't have an excuse.
Yeah, we don't.
I
We
we
don't.
really
Yeah,
don't have an excuse. So I think that's been really helpful. Anything else, Brittany, that has really helped you as you were navigating just this really dark time of your life?
yeah. I would say giving myself permission to imagine what it would be like to create a name that was so like not a therapy name.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but represented really what I stand for, giving myself permission to
Yeah.
define it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a very creative process. But I would really credit the whole birth of Healmatic to Jackie Johnson in Philadelphia, to JC Hall in New York, to Ellie again, like to my hip hop therapy collective. It's really eerie to come up with that name in New York. You know, it was the first time I went. But it is really because of them, not just because it was New York, but because they reminded me of who I am outside of a therapist. They reminded me why I do this. They reminded me of my why. And that's the thing I would really encourage people to think about. Like, what will help you is go back to your why and ground yourself in that, because there are going to be things that are going to rock that. There are going to be things that are going to cause you to question it. But going back to, you know, what my grandma showed me, my grandma didn't drive. She walked everywhere. I remember I was so tired. I had put steps in as a kid, okay? But
mine would wake me up in the morning. Vámonos, let's go. Oh, I know. Yeah.
I walked
get it.
the streets of East LA, but seeing how she knew everybody.
Yeah.
Seeing how her neighbors. I remember going to her neighborhood years later. She wasn't home, and her neighbors came out and called me by my childhood nickname, and she just had such a presence and an impact in that community. And going back to that will make
intention.
Yeah.
Definitely going back to your intention, because when things get hard and things you don't know what direction to go, really going back to, like you said, your why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think something that you said that really stood out to me was when I decided to just branch on my own was really finding my voice. But who am I? Like, because I was in a group practice. I worked community mental health. I worked at hospital settings, inpatient, you name it. So I was always working for someone or with somebody.
Right.
And I feel like this year I've grown so much in finding out who Liz is. Like, what is it that I like, and what I get to make my logo on my own, and like, what do I want in my office, and how do I want this podcast to go? Like, so all these decisions have been so overwhelming. I have a beautiful team. They're behind you guys. For those of you who can't see, but they've helped me so much in figuring it out and being okay, like if I make a mistake, because that's something I'm learning to do as well, is like making a mistake and like, okay, but how am I going to work through this? When I was getting ready for your podcast, Brittani, I was talking to my husband. I'm like, man, I've been a fan of Brittani for a while now. And I'm like, what is it specifically that really draws me to her? And I think the thing is that you're so real, but there's so many, you embrace all these facets of who you are. You're not just a therapist. You talk about being a creative. You talk about being a mom. You talk about all this so freely, and like you really have put like humanized being a therapist.
Yeah.
And I think something that you mentioned on the live was like, I think a lot of people just romanticize like being a therapist, but there's just so much more to us, right? And I think that's also why people probably connect to you, and I've been really embracing that in my practice. But
yeah,
I was like, that's what it is. I'm like, she's just so authentic and true to herself.
Yeah.
Like, I want to get there.
You know what though? With that said, like there are certain like creators that gave me permission to do that. One of them is Joy of Social Work, Soko Ray, and Dr. Antoinette. Those 3 accounts, I remember during the pandemic, like their content was different, but they were all them. Joy of Social Work shared her story about leaving community mental health and the fear of starting to practice but doing it anyways. I'm like, damn, I'm not the only one. Like this like gave me permission to be me. Soko Ray created a whole group practice based out of Inglewood. Like that's what I visually wanted to create. And Dr. Antoinette is like super funny and created just, a relatable content for therapists, but for people to like to laugh at, you know what I mean? And she's super fly, like her style is on point all the time.
Yeah.
But those 3 accounts gave me permission to be myself. It's okay to be a therapist. It's okay to be X, Y, and Z, and wear some dope shoes, or to get fly, or to talk normal, or to be funny.
Yeah.
Like, I talked about this on live, but if you want a doctor office vibe,
You're not gonna
don't come to us. It's not us. I tell my team, your dress code is to show up as you.
Yeah.
Like, just show. I want you to be yourself. I don't want you to feel like you have to code switch here. Like, this is our space to provide, healing and to our community.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, those 3 accounts gave me permission. So the fact that I could pay that forward to other people is really one of the very few reasons why probably one of the very few reasons why I'm still on TikTok and Instagram so actively, because it is a lot of work. It's very exhausting. You got to deal with, some wild people sometimes. Not too many, but
I get it.
It's a lot of work.
I've seen the comments. Yeah.
People are out of control. Yeah.
No, but thank you. Yeah. So you've now passed that on to me. There's been other accounts too, but I think just as we're sticking to this episode is I've just seen how real you are. And I think that that's something I'm learning to embrace now as I'm entering my own business. Like, I know we were talking even about my logo, and you're like, when did you do that or how? And I was even now my logo, my name, Calidad Holistic Wellness, actually comes from, I shared it on the live, was my husband's father came from El Salvador as an immigrant, and he started his own carpet business. So I come from a line of entrepreneurs on his side and mine. And he always said, todo hecho con calidad. And I'm like, man, that really stood out to me, because I feel like our community deserves that. It's not just what you see maybe in community mental health. And I was like, I'm going to really go with that, because my work, I'm EMDR certified. I'm an approved consultant. I'm like, I need to do this so I can provide the best services for my colleagues as a consultant, but also as a therapist. So I really took his name. He says I stole it, but I've really I'm really embracing it. And I think that's my why, is to provide quality services for our community, because it's kind of sometimes hard to find that, Brittany. And I think that's why I was attracted to you too, is that everything you do too is with quality.
Right. I think that, and this is just kind of I want people to think about it in this way. In business, they oftentimes say that you have to pick between quality or quantity.
That's true.
And so you have a lot of, and this, I don't want to jump ahead, but this kind of leads to this conversation of picking the right people to work with.
Absolutely.
If your vision is to grow this huge group practice and having offices here, right, then you're probably going to compromise the quality of support you're providing your team, of leadership, I think about being a leader has been a mentor to people to help them develop their own. It's a fine line of you're also seeing the negative core beliefs come up, but also giving them the push to help them develop what they want to create, and finding their with my team, I always tell them find your style of therapy. I believe therapy is such a craft, and almost the way that I see it is my grandma never used measurements to cook, right?
That's true.
Being a good therapist to me is knowing what flavor to put into the recipe to make it just right for that person, right? To cook for a person. So when you're doing therapy, you might need to pull in EMDR. You might need to pull in some talk therapy. You might need to pull in some music. You might need to pull in whatever it is to make it right for that person. That's how we work. And so, but if there's many huge practices out there, 50, 60 clinicians, and I don't know those practices personally, but I would kind of be curious as to what the quality of support that those clinicians are getting versus a smaller group practice. You're probably not going to have multiple offices everywhere, but you're probably going to make a quality impact on your team and then put them in a position to make quality impact in the community. It's kind of think about the story of McDonald's. McDonald's started off In-N-Out, quality burgers. I think they're in San Bernardino, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
The first one, but they had to compromise the quality of the burger to have global expansion, right? And so it's the same thing. So I think when you're looking for someone to work with, you need to look at what is their goal? What is their vision? If it's quantity and you're trying to build quality, it's a different perspective, it's a different vision, it's a different goal.
Yeah, and being able, and I think finding my voice and being able to have these conversations with your, if you decide you want to enter a partnership, like using your voice and talking about these uncomfortable things, right? Like, what is your vision? What do you see out of this private practice? I think we talked about this before we jumped
Right.
on our podcast. It's like, I think people who are going to start partnerships really need to be in ongoing therapy.
For sure.
It's like
Facts.
couples therapy.
Yes.
Uh,
There's therapists that specialize in
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and being able to, because as with a business, you're gonna grow and you're gonna evolve, just like any human being. We evolve, we grow, we start to like something, we don't, and I think that that goes true for business partnerships. Is that having somebody there to really mediate and talk about these uncomfortable conversations is so important.
Yeah, look, I think that there are people that get it right. I
Yeah,
really do. I think that those people they just have a good working relationship. They have ongoing conversations, open dialogue. But if you miss one thing, if something kind of bothers you, you don't address it, it gets messy real quick. And so I think
fast.
that going back to like how I learned that I had a fawn response, right? I didn't say a lot, right? And the other thing too I want people to think about, especially therapists, is you need to think about why you want to have a partnership, because you don't necessarily need one. A lot of times we go into business partnerships because we're afraid and it feels less scary if we're doing it with somebody else. Right. So I think that we really need to think about why you want a partnership. For me, it's not, and this is just a very biased opinion, so take that with a grain of salt. I don't believe in them for me because I want to be able to pass my business on to my daughter or put it in a trust for my family. Right. And so that's my vision though. That's how I see things. But there are people that get it right and do great work, and I also believe that I did great work when I was in partnership, and we did a really good job and there was a good impact in the community. But to a certain extent, it's important to normalize the fact that you guys can outgrow each other too.
Absolutely. Like in a marriage, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. I think the freedom I have now of being my own boss and just
Mhm.
having my own practice on my own, like nobody can take that away from you. And I'm the same. I have a son and I can put this in a trust or I can pass it along to him if he decides to ever want to enter the field of mental health.
Right.
It's there and I don't have to. But once again, on the downside, there's just a lot of decisions that we have to end up making.
Mhm.
But I think that was my thing too. I think I did do a lot of great work when I was in partnership. And so I don't want to discredit that either. And I
Mhm.
learned a lot of great lessons. But yeah, I think it's nice that you said, like, did we enter this maybe because we were fearful?
Yeah, I certainly
Yeah,
did.
I
And
did too.
yeah. And here's the
Yeah,
thing. Like, I really am grateful for that time. And I'm really grateful for the time in community mental health too. In order to be a successful, effective entrepreneur, you got to be making mistakes. You got to be failing. You got to be making
totally.
mistakes. I've lost a lot of money. I've made a lot more back. Right. I have taken a lot of hits with waiting for insurance companies to pay your girl.
I
Right.
know. I get it. It's not in yet. Checking my bank. No,
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah,
But we
yeah,
have to cover payroll. So that means that we got to pay our employees, even if
yeah.
insurance companies don't pay us, right? So there's a lot of risks that we take.
Yes,
But I do think that in order to be an entrepreneur, in my vision in owning that group practice and putting people in a position to learn and provide quality work, is you have to be willing to invest in people, in the right people.
absolutely.
And I've learned questions to ask in interviews. I've learned to include my team in decisions.
That's
When I
wonderful.
bring on interns, I bring on a new team member. It's not my I make the final call.
Yeah,
But it's the team's decision too.
totally.
And so I think of being an effective leader and entrepreneur as almost like a trauma informed approach. I'm
Yes,
collaborative. I'm super
yes.
collaborative with my team.
Mhm.
And I make them feel like, on paper they're employees, I'm the founder, blah blah blah, but like, we're a team. And
Okay.
I value the energy that we have in clinical consultation. I value when they call me and they're like, this is my passion, this is what I want to do, and I could support them with that. I value all that, so I don't want to mess that up. And so I always make sure that they feel included and they feel heard in those types of decisions.
No, I love that too because I don't have any interns right now. I've had one,
Hmm.
but I think I do that with my team, especially, Kai. she's right behind. It's something that, late night, I really do involve her in everything. Late night calls,
Mhm.
text messages, like, because I feel like the relationship I at least have with her is really valuable. And I think
Yeah.
that's why we've been able to grow as fast as we have because, I don't know. I think when I was in partnership, I wasn't using my voice as much as I needed to be using it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, no, I'm going to really use it to my full capacity. And I do have other, like, they're not partnerships with people I'm collaborating with. And that's something I'm also doing is like being very intentional in those relationships as well.
Mhm.
And being very open and like, this is how I feel. Because, like you said, you miss one step, resentment builds and it just spirals.
Yeah.
So, I think having open communication and being honest and just I don't know, just being very open and transparent with the people that you're working with
Yeah.
at least has helped me.
Yeah, and look, people go through stuff,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
people are, if you're in partnership, you might have a business partner that's going through something in their life where they're not putting in
Yeah.
they're not able to show up in the way that they want to. There's so many things that could happen
Yeah.
that are outside of our control. And so I think that that's why I really think that those check-ins and that open dialogue and
Yes.
communication is super important so that you don't miss anything and that you're consistently working towards the vision, towards the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Those check-ins. So once again, another offering to everybody is having those check-ins,
Mhm.
being able to, even if it's something like miscommunication, being able to openly have that conversation with your team,
Right.
right? So I think that's really important. So it sounds like a big theme today is really using your voice and
Yeah.
stepping outside of your comfort zone and
Mhm.
and doing the work.
Yeah, and
Open,
being okay when you don't get it right. You know what I mean? Like
big.
being okay when you don't get it right. I think that if you look at some of the most, also studying, some of studying not studying business. That sounds so intimidating. But I know like watching certain movies like the movie that they did on McDonald's or
Yeah.
we talked about, the Air Jordan that like really learning
Yeah.
like what does it mean when you open up a business. Opening up a business is like buying a house.
Yeah.
You sit on the house. What happens if you're in California? Well, most places the equity grows, right? It don't matter who lives in the house. It don't matter who does the repairs. It matters who owns the house.
Absolutely.
So you have to think of it in that way. So has the business partnership grows, well, so does the value of the business grow. So if you ever want to step away or get out of it, right, you're looking at, you know, splitting money. You're looking at a lot.
Yes.
So there's like the financial piece, there's the emotional piece of grieving, but also having the voice and being empowered.
Totally.
And then also the other piece of like making peace with it too. And there's
Yes.
no bad blood and it is what
No.
it is, right? You shine in your direction, I'm gonna shine in my direction. But I want therapists to go back to grad school and I want y'all to remember all the many group projects.
I love that.
Right?
And how those
Yeah,
went
I
down.
almost got down. Like I was in Hawaii when I went to grad school, and there was my grad school friends will know this memory, but there was this
Oh
one
no.
person that did nothing, and I was like, "Yo, this is not
I
a."
feel you. I
Right?
get it. I
Now, I'm
get
not
it.
saying like this
No.
is like the
Yeah.
same with our business
No,
partnerships,
but
but
yeah.
it's something that
Learn from that.
right. It's something
Yes.
that it's kind of like a similar experience, and so they got the A. But you think about a business partnership, if it goes down that way, it's not the A, it's the money that you made that they get, right?
Absolutely.
It's or they have half of whatever the percentage of it is. So
Mhm.
it's important to again make sure that you have those shared values, same work ethic. Find someone that complements. I love how you two work.
Aw.
Like I see your partnership. What I've observed between you two is
Oh,
that you
thank you.
push each other outside of your comfort zone. That's a
Oh,
beautiful partnership, is a beautiful relationship to
thank
have.
you, Brittany. Yeah, after every podcast episode, we debrief. I
Mm,
cry. She shed some tears, and I just feel like I'm like, and after the partnership ended, she's been so loyal. Like
yeah.
I want to give that to her. She's been loyal and has really gone through it with me.
Yeah.
So I really thank you for seeing that.
No,
Because yeah,
yeah,
because she's been part of my circle of support.
you're a real
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
You're a real
she
one,
really
Kai.
is. Shout out to Kai.
Yeah.
No, but she really has, and I think this kind of leads back to before we end our episode and feeling a sense of responsibility, because I feel that that also helped me through the difficult times. Was Kai was already working with me,
Mhm.
and I just felt like, okay, we need to be doing more. And if I stay, that's not going to happen.
Mm.
So I also made that decision. I'm like, Kai has some wonderful ideas, and we share that same values, and I'm like,
Mhm.
we just have to do this. And
Yeah.
that's and I know I'm responsible for her. She's part of my team,
Mhm.
which is why I work so hard. I'm not only, like you said, I'm not only working for myself, I'm working for my team.
Right.
And I always want them to grow with me.
Mhm.
And so I think that's why we've worked so well together, because I was like, I owe it to her. Like, she's decided to stay by my side. I'm telling you, she's driven from Venice to multiple locations,
Wow.
and I'm like, this girl is loyal. So I feel like having a sense of responsibility, not for my team, but also my family
Mhm.
financially.
That's what I always
Yeah,
say this. You cannot it's very challenging to be an entrepreneur cuz you're never quite comfortable. Like
never,
I
never.
there's when we expand our team, I don't have the comfort to just like not post anything on social media because that's where our following comes from. That's where most people find
Yeah.
us. They find us through hashtags, through
Yeah, you
whatever it is.
told
Yeah,
me.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So I am like, I can't, I'm not just paying my bills. Like, I need to put other people in a position to pay their own
Absolutely.
bills and to, to have a good life.
Yeah.
And so it is this constant push um, to be accountable because you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for a whole team. And there's definitely for me like it's about investing in the right people.
Absolutely.
Has my team pushes me to be better, I make them better, right? And
Absolutely.
so that's I to me that's like a successful business partnership.
Yeah.
That's a successful collaboration is when you can do that with someone.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah, and
like a marriage.
yeah, no, it is. And I've seen that. I think you took on two new interns, right? And I can see you've I think one of them was on one of your podcast episodes.
Oh yeah, Michael.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
like, wow. Like,
Yeah.
I saw just even the
Yeah.
dialogue and the conversation, you can tell
Yeah.
how just invested, and just how it flowed so easily. So quality once again.
Yeah, it's really like I love the fact that we can go grab food and like laugh
Yeah.
and talk about, all these different things, but really offer, the reality of cuz here's the thing, right? Like I think that you hear so many people say like, "Oh, you can't have like a family vibe in a business." I get it. I get it. Very difficult. Very difficult. For me, I come from a line of entrepreneurs too. My
Yeah.
dad has a family-owned business, right? Passed down to my little brother now. And so I've had a very different relationship in that way with seeing it. And so I do think that there is this very normal or this very common dynamic of I'm the leader, what I say goes, like, and it's almost like a dictatorship. But I feel like if I could provide my team a space where they could be themselves and be vulnerable and be collaborative in the decisions that we're making as a team, then that's so healing to me that seeing them come out of spaces where they don't have that,
Yeah.
like that's all I want as a leader is to be able to
Yeah.
to do that for my team and give them the game. Like so many people withhold information too. Like it's just people are weird. So,
No, I definitely agree with that. I also come from a line of entrepreneurs. My parents own their own businesses,
mhm,
and I saw that too. Now it's given to my brother, but I've also seen that, and I think that we are, being women of color, we're also raised in a collectivistic
mhm,
culture. So
mhm,
I think it's nice to be able to add that into our practices,
right.
right? And it also helps heal. I think that that's also been one of my, and I know we're going to talk about this in our net in another episode, but being on social media
Mhm,
has, and being able to share this space like with people like yourself, Brittany, um, has been really healing for me, because there's other people out there that share the same vision.
mhm,
The same
yeah.
vision. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like when I saw Soko Ray lead her
Yeah.
team, I was like, oh, it's not like it doesn't seem like an abuse of power. Like
No, no.
super collaborative. Like wants her people to shine. And I was like, okay, it can look like that, right? And I'm seeing that at home as well. I was at a party one time and I was telling someone what I do. They're like, oh, so you're really not like, much love to this person, but they're like, you're really not like your typical, like, you're not a business owner because you're not really focused on expanding and, creating passive income, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, if you work with me, I'm going to encourage you to open up your own business. I'm going to encourage you to think about yourself in that way. I'm going to encourage you to grow and to expand. I'm going to empower you. I'm going to speak positive. Like, that's what I'm going to do. And so but it is like, you think about what does it mean to be business, and there is this very like elitist selfishness type of label attached to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the fact that we don't come from that.
Yeah, we don't.
We're like unicorns or
well, I mean, and if you think about it, our parents, like my dad, one of the things my dad and my grandma taught me, my grandma raised 2 entrepreneurs and a doctor at East LA. So that's incredible. Absolutely. But one of the things that they taught me is relationships are currency. Like, I drove out here, because I feel like building with you and connecting with you in this way is a currency in many different ways, right? In many different ways. So they taught me that, like, having relationships, we call it networking, but that's how you build, and that's how you expand, and that's how you grow in a business too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Wow. Thank you for seeing me and wanting to grow. And, it sounds like, once again, we have so many different same values, and I'm really excited to continue growing with you, Brittani. This relationship has been so healing. You have made me feel that I'm not alone in this, and that I can share my pain and just the ways that I've also been able to overcome it. But I'm learning from you. That's something I share with a lot of my guests, is that I'm learning from all of you. You are all so wonderful and have so many skills that I don't have. And you've, once again, like, I kind of do keep you as like a role model. I watch.
Oh my God, that is so wild to me. I feel like I'm barely surviving.
No, but now you're passing that on to me, because I do. Because I'm like, wow, like, once again, like, you really are doing a lot of wonderful work.
No, thank you for seeing me and acknowledging me in that way. And, I just feel like this episode today is like incredibly healing, to make peace with what we've been through, but then also to move forward and to be vulnerable, and again, stepping outside, challenging ourselves to be in front of a camera and to talk about these things, right? Is super dope. So,
even think about it. If I was in partnership, I don't think I would be having this conversation with you. Look at all the beautiful relationships I've been able to build now that I'm out of the relationship I was before.
And that's the thing, right? Is as you grow, this is true for when you're in therapy too. I just talked about this in a podcast. As you grow and you step into your truth and you live that out and you find your voice, you're going to enter into a state of grieving, because there's going to be a loss of certain relationships. But as you do that, there is going to be the opportunity for new relationships to come into your life, and because we heal in community. That's one of the things, like, I think we talk about boundaries, like, cut everybody off. We heal in community, and it's normal to have people fade in and out of different seasons in your life.
I had she's in ACSW, I believe, and Yolanda Ramos, she said, la cultura cura. The culture heals.
The culture heals. Yes, exactly.
And so
I think that is what is so important for us to remember, is that there are things within our culture that we got to unlearn for sure. But there are also beautiful things that have always existed within our culture. Like, I think about just listening to music. I don't speak Spanish, but let me tell you, no me queda más by Selena. Like, I feel her. I know that word. I know that song by heart. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain moments in our upbringing that remind us and take us back, whether it be food, whether it be the kitchen in our grandma's house, like, whether it be, because if we think about it, the brain is very sensitive to sensory. So if you tap into that, it goes there.
Well, I use a lot of music and EMDR, as you do as well. The reason I was laughing, for those of you who are listening to this on audio, is I thought Vicente Fernandez.
Yes.
How just like how when And I would see it with the men in my family. They would grab a beer, put some chente on, and just like
that was the only time in my family. Continue. This is like this. It's either mariachi music or it's like, you know, I grew up on like funk, Earth, Wind and Fire, Tower Power.
That's
like
my
oldies.
husband. Yes,
that's the only time, especially men in my family, release and get vulnerable and cry.
Yeah,
I'm like, damn fool. Like we can't have a normal conversation, but
you put the music. Yeah, my husband is Queen. Oh my! You put Queen on, and him and his dad. Man, it's over.
Takes you. I feel the same. Like Devotion from Earth, Wind and Fire. That's like my family song. Like that song takes me back.
It's deep.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So Brittani, how can our beautiful audience find you, and how can we support the work that you're doing?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, at B Williams LCSW. Follow also the podcast, the Wholehearted West Coast Living podcast, and just stay tuned with what we have coming.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we have another episode coming up. Let's do it. And we have another guest, and we're going to actually have a Cafecito y Calidad reunion with him, but we'll share a little bit more in a little bit. So thank you so much, and talk to you all later.